And it is a beautiful Wednesday here in the Midwest. Not always as predicted, so we'll see what the weather does over the next 48 hours. I think we've got the possibility of severe storms. Pardon me. And life is unfolding across this great land. It's becoming mesmerizing, and we're all addicted to what's going to happen next in the script of events. How are you this morning, Stephen?
I'm doing pretty well. It's kind of cool here, nice little breeze, and we just moved, in case listeners didn't know that. I'm in our new house, and we've been here for about a week. So that's why there's a little postponement on our videos.
And the new digs, you've got a view where you can see forever. How awesome is that?
It's totally awesome. I don't think I've ever seen a view this great from our house.
You've got what? You've got all kinds of critters up there too. You're kind of out in the boondocks, and so you've got animals that are sneaking up and spying on you periodically, I would assume.
Yeah, lots of cows that are just sort of grazing about. And even when we are driving out of our, I guess you could say our complex, whatever you would call it. And then, you know, lots of squirrels just jumping in the road a lot. So yeah, you got to have to kind of watch to make sure you don't hit anything.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be all sorts of other exciting critters showing up as you continue to live there and observe. And, you know, that area, I remember that area as having an occasional cougar that would drift down, and depending on, you know, whether there was drought or famine or whatever going on, they would hang out around humans and look for any discards. Of course, bears are in those regions too, and raccoons and rattlesnakes, and oh my, oh
my. Yeah, and you know, it's like always an opportunity to appreciate nature and like appreciate the beauty in it. And I honestly, I saw a rattlesnake up close here just once so far in California, and the one time I saw it, it was actually just like really scared. And you know, the only reason they get into that like triggered response where they're, you know, like rattling is usually like, you know, if they're scared around people, or maybe they're wanting dinner. It depends.
I think it's more fear-based, and you know, we see that spill over into the human equation, and all of the Democrats and all of the Republicans have got their rattles on high alert right now, which is making the whole thing kind of humorous here. We can see our animal nature coming out as we continue to watch this grand drama called life in the 21st century.
Yeah, and it's quite fictitious, right? What is an animal nature like? I still am like, what is this? Like needing to consume other things in order to stay alive? Like, how does that even work, you know?
Yeah, it is a brilliant script, but underneath all the window dressing, there is that one rather tragic truth, which is all of this is designed to prove to us that death is real, and that God abandoned us here on this little rock floating through space. And of course, that is definitely not the case, but it's a thing of honesty. You know, we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to move into the recognition of truth. And you can't just read about the truth and contemplate the truth. You have to get down and live the truth. And that's kind of where we're at with our dialogues here and our discussions about the text here for the manual for teachers in A Course in Miracles. So we're looking at how it is that our our identities are established as teachers of God. And one of the characteristics that's very vital to that is honesty. So you want to start us off with this one?
Sure thing. So honesty reads as this. It says, all other traits of God's teachers rest on trust. Once that has been achieved, the others cannot fail to follow. Only the trusting can afford honesty, for only they can see its value. Honesty does not apply only to what you say. The term actually means consistency. There is nothing you say that contradicts what you think or do. No thought opposes any other thought. No act belies your word. And no word lacks agreement with another. Such are the truly honest. At no level are they in conflict with themselves. Therefore, it is impossible for them to be in conflict with anyone or anything.
That's pretty black and white. And that I think is probably a thing that is challenging for a lot of people is they have one foot in this stance of honesty, being able to look at life and not flinch. And then there's the other foot that's planted in that region of fear and anticipation and the expectation of things that are going to be harmful, things that are going to be disastrous. So honesty, when you really look at it, as this passage presents to us, is a thing of residing in our truth. And if we are fully invested and residing in our truth, then nothing that comes along is going to cause us concern or worry or panic.
Yeah, and I mean, the idea really ultimately is that we really can't not be living in truth too. I mean, we can just block it out of our awareness, right? So it's always like truth is truth because it's all that really is. It's all that really is true. And so you can just push it out of your awareness, push out of your mind, and that's pretty much like what the ego is. It's like it's that thought of no, not truth. But then, eventually that wears off and there you are at truth again. So
exactly. And really the whole point is how soon do you want the illusion to begin to evaporate? How soon do you want to be able to step above the error and the false judgment and the expectation of pandemonium? Because that is the determining factor. Are you still at a place where you like to indulge the ego, where the ego has meaning for you? Because as long as you're in that space, you're going to get pretty much exactly what you want.
Yeah, and just like we were talking about, I think in the last video, about like when you're when you're going through the process with the Course of Miracles, and like you're recognizing all these things that are no longer of value to you because you're seeing all the ego's ploys really clearly. And then as you go through that process, it seems like things are being taken away from you, but you're actually just realizing that it has no value for you. So it just falls away naturally. But that can create angst for the ego, to watch things slip away.
That is very true. And the ego is good at, wallowing in self-pity. And so if you notice that inclination to feel sorry for yourself, then you know that you've got the volume on the ego turned up way too loud in your life. Going on with this second section here, it says, the peace of mind which the advanced teachers of God experience is largely due to their perfect honesty. It is only the wish to deceive that makes for war. No one at one with himself can even conceive of conflict. Conflict is the inevitable result of self-deception, and self-deception is dishonesty. There is no challenge to a teacher of God Challenge implies doubt, and the trust on which God's teachers rest secure makes doubt impossible. Therefore, they can only succeed. In this, as in all things, they are honest. They can only succeed because they never do their will alone. They choose for all mankind, for all the world, and all things in it, for the unchanging and unchangeable beyond appearances, and for the Son of God and his Creator. How could they not succeed? They choose in perfect honesty, sure of their choice as of themselves. And that really gets us very deeply into the idea of surrendering the agenda that the ego has outlined and wishes to move forward with. You know, one of the things that the ego is very big on is punishing. We have to punish all these people for all the nasty, evil things they have done. And when we get lost in that conversation with ourselves, really it's just a matter of reduction, and we're reducing it down to punishing literally everybody for their perceived transgressions. And that all folds back into the self. And so self-punishment is a key element in the ego's agenda. But here we're given a very nice and clear description of what it is that we're supposed to do. We're supposed to let the Holy Spirit lead the way so that we can honestly live in our integrity.
Yeah, it's kind of like everything in this life is preparing us just to do just what you said, just to rely more on the Holy Spirit, because as we go through the world and live out this lifetime, it's like we watch how all these things that we seek out in the world, like trying to find certainty in the world, or if you're trying to trust in external objects in the world, like, you know, trusting other bodies, you know, then you're really setting yourself up for a failure. And then eventually, you know, you watch all these things topple over and you're not left with anything else but the awareness of truth. And then I think it's about building that certainty in that, and about like rejecting the need for an external source.
Yeah, to realize that we truly do live and move and have our being in God, and God has its being in us. So there is, you know, that humbling aspect that comes up over and over again when we stop and look at the truth. And so it ends up becoming a very easy journey as we're able to identify the flaws in our thinking and start to gently redirect our thoughts.
Right.
So that leads us up to tolerance. You want to take off on that one?
Yes. So it says tolerance. God's teachers do not judge. To judge is to be dishonest, for to judge is to assume a position you do not have. Judgment without self-deception is impossible. Judgment implies that you have been deceived in your brothers. How then could you not have been deceived in yourself? Judgment implies a lack of trust, and trust remains the bedrock of the teacher of God's whole thought system. Let this be lost, and all his learning goes. Without judgment are all things equally acceptable, for who could judge otherwise? Without judgment are all men brothers, for who is there who stands apart? Judgment destroys honesty and shatters trust. No teacher of God can judge and hope to learn.
Now that's pretty cut and dried. So if you're actually working with A Course in Miracles, that's going to have to be your foundation that you start to build your new identity, your new truth on, which is really just the restoration of your personal truth. So judgment is the one probably singularly most poisonous thought that we encounter when we are observing our egos. And it is, again, a thing of developing trust and belief in the process, of course, so that we can remove ourselves from that inclination to judge.
Yeah, I mean, just so we're clear on what judgment is, I mean, isn't judgment that idea of fear, really? Because you're really locking someone into place. You're saying, oh, you're this way and not this way. Like you're saying, I'm going to judge you as this, and then that kind of like sticks you as being, you know, you lose your fluidity then when you judge. So what's your definition of judgment? I'm curious.
Well, I think judgment is essentially a criminal act, in that it is being willing to see somebody as they were not created by God, but as you have created them by your own ego. So anybody that you have designated as being not Jesus incarnate right in front of you, you have a judgment against to one degree or another. And we have to see the holiness within all of the people we encounter in life in order to live without that essential nature of judgment being the dominant force in our day's activities.
Yeah, and so that's a really tricky thought too, judgment, because like everything that comes from the ego, it's something that really tries to convolute our whole way of thinking, you know. And so like you can find yourself judging someone as weak or judging someone as a victim. Like if you buy someone's victim story, then that's a form of judgment, isn't it not?
It absolutely is. And even more insidious is what we like to think of as nice judgments. Oh, this is a wonderful person. This person has a beautiful body. They have a wonderful soul. You know, we have to get out of all realms of duality. And the only way you can do that is to see this person as perfect and is, you know, an expression of God. So both good and bad judgments are something that we're given as, you know, as our ethic, as our standard to live by. Oh, don't go out with people from the wrong side of town and yada yada yada. I want to hang out with all the beautiful people and live on a yacht and all that. It goes in both directions, and that's really what the Course is ultimately helping us to achieve, is a life that is non-dualistic in nature.
And so you could say that the antithesis of judgment would be neutrality, or like objectivity, being able to see clearly that you're looking at Christ and you're not looking at whatever image you painted onto that.
Absolutely a fact.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
As soon as you have an interpretation of somebody, then you're off on a rocky road. So, you know, what I try to bring myself back to is a surrender over and over again to the Holy Spirit, and say, you know, or to the essence of Jesus. Let me look through your eyes. I don't want to look through my eyes, because my eyes are going to see duality here. And Jesus was, you know, the way shore, in that he escaped being a victim of seeing a dualistic world.
Right. So the next section, do you want to read gentleness?
Yeah, I think we can probably go through this section and wind it down then.
Sure.
Harm is impossible for God's teachers. They can neither harm nor be harmed. Harm is the outcome of judgment. It is a dishonest act that follows a dishonest thought. Ooh, see, we're getting back into the idea of the mind here. It is a verdict of guilt upon a brother, and therefore on oneself. It is the end of peace and the denial of learning. It demonstrates the absence of God's curriculum and its replacement by insanity. No teacher of God but must learn, and fairly early in his training, that harmfulness completely obliterates his function from his awareness. It will make him confused, fearful, angry, and suspicious. It will make the Holy Spirit's lessons impossible to learn. Nor can God's teacher be heard at all, except by those who realize that harm can actually achieve nothing. No gain can come of it. And, this goes in direct alignment with that idea of removing the beam from your own eye before you worry about the mote in your friend's eye, because all of our inclinations to fix the people around us, oh, you would be so much better if you didn't think this way or if you didn't do that, generally are, again, activities of the ego, and we have to be willing to step away from that. Because when we are in dialogue with people, we should be in flow with them. We should not be critical of them. We should not be having judgments about them or against them. So it really is a process of pulling yourself back from the ego's agenda of slapping a label on everybody that you meet.
So even if you don't pick up your dirty dishes and we're sharing a home together, and if I judge you for that, or if I think it's my job to reprimand you for that, then I'm operating from the ego?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
But it's for the sake of practicality, you can say, pick up your damn dishes without having a judgment around it. You don't have to go into accusing or attacking. You can just say, we're on your way out to play baseball, you can leave your dishes in the sink or whatever. But it doesn't have to have a judgment associated with it. This is just, giving somebody instructions as to how they conduct themselves and how you conduct yourself in a living situation.
And what if they say, I'm not going to follow your instruction?
Well, obviously there will be consequences, but, a lot of this kind of back and forth stuff is simply a reflection of what's going on inside yourself. So before you get hysterical about a kid giving you some pushback, you have to stop and look inside and say, why am I pushing myself in this direction? Why am I trying to get myself into confrontation? And of course, then the happy face of the ego bubbles up.
And so the idea is that it's not a big deal either way. I can give you instruction, but if we're to turn into like some sort of tug of war, the ego is present. So just simply forgive it and move on with your life. Like, so what? Like, if the dishes didn't get done, it's still okay.
Yeah. Well, it's a good incentive to buy paper plates, and
easily resolved.
Yeah, that's how we resolved it here. Is we use paper plates, and life is good. So there's always a solution. The Holy Spirit's always got a solution. Your job is to be willing to hear it. And when you start to take off on this avenue of trying to fix it, of trying to resolve the issue on your own, that's when you get into deep water. So you want to be willing to step back and take a deep breath and say, okay, let's go in a little bit different direction here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a funny thing the way that confrontation can work. And just to stay on topic here a bit, I think that it's a really good opportunity to just keep on remembering how silly that it can get. But the ego really wants to fight. It really wants to find a conflict, and make it as real as it possibly can, because it's truly an addiction. I think it's really the only addiction there is, in truth.
Right, and the reality is that it was all a result of a bad choice. It's decision making. Am I this or am I that? And but once the choice was made, it created the illusion of time, and so that's why we're having to, spend a lot of our time trying to understand what it is that we did that started the whole mess off.
Yeah, and I mean, remembering really that, I mean, time is an illusion too. So we just, like, we don't need to identify with that.
Not at all.
Yeah. Cool. Well, is that all you wanted to go into, or did you want me to read the next paragraph before we finish up?
Why don't we finish up gentleness here, and then we'll be working on joy on our next episode.
Oh, that sounds good. That's a good phrase, working on joy.
Yes.
So it says, therefore, God's teachers are wholly gentle. They need the strength of gentleness, for it is in this that the function of salvation becomes easy. To those who would do harm, it is impossible. To those to whom harm has no meaning, it is merely natural. What choice but this has meaning to the sane? Who chooses hell when he perceives a way to heaven? And who would choose the weakness that must come from harm in place of the unfailing, all-encompassing, and limitless strength of gentleness? The might of God's teachers lies in their gentleness, for they have understood their evil thoughts came neither from God's Son nor his Creator. Thus did they join their thoughts with him who is their source. And so their will, which always was his own, is free to be itself.
And that really is, something that we can see in the world around us. You will encounter those people who have a very gentle approach to life, and they always exude this amazing sense of power. And so that's the thing that we want to encapsulate or to incorporate in our own thinking and our own activities in the world, is to, be like a feather floating across the pond, and not quite touching the pond, but having that effect of calming the pond, I guess you could say. It's a very gentle approach to life, is the only one that actually works.
Right. And that's the true strength that we have as well. And you said what I was thinking too as we read this, that it starts with being gentle in your own self and your own mind. And then the behavior or the action of it is just like the fruit of that, right? It's not like you need to go and like adjust your behavior. It's like you need to be gentle in yourself first.
Right. And as soon as you start to live in that space, you will discover that it affects everything that you encounter. It kind of is like, Moses getting all those guys across the Red Sea. It's a parting of the waters. Gentleness it has that effect in the world.
Absolutely. And I noticed that everyone responds better to gentleness. I mean, generally speaking, some people seem to like a little edge, but I don't know.
But again, that loops around, though. It's all in your own mind. So parts of your mind are still looking for, the old approach of swords and guns and knives. And it's like, well, maybe we need to tone that down a bit.
Yeah, that's not really useful, not needed for sure.
Exactly. Well, Stephen, it sounds like you guys are going to have a great life on the hillside there. And
thank you.
We'll be getting back together for the next section, joy, in 1 week, or actually less than a week. So
yeah, we can start on Mondays again.
Perfect.
Cool.
Well,
all right, Chris.
Fun.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for meeting again. I'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Bye.
Okay, bye.